Now, one thing that can happen if you look at evidence only in one direction is you might see evidence when it's not even there. And illusory correlations are actually an example of that. What illusory correlations are defined as, in this case, let's say by Chapman, 1967, is a report of a correlation between two classes of events which are in reality either not correlated or correlated to a lesser extent than reported by observers. So people believe that events co-occur at a higher rate than they actually do. That is what we would call an illusory correlation. And I want to show you a demonstration experiment of how these illusory correlations can come to be. In this experiment, participants were presented information about two new neutral groups, so they were artificial groups. And about these groups, Group A and Group B, participants were told about behaviors that were either desirable or undesirable. And you can see the distribution of these presented behaviors in this table. So there was one group about whom more information was given than about the other. Group A, we will call it the majority, and Group B, the minority. And you can see in total about Group A, there were 26 behaviors, and about Group B, only 13 behaviors displayed. And further, behaviors were either desirable or undesirable. And most behaviors described were desirable, 27 out of 39, and only a minority, 12 out of 39, was undesirable. But importantly, the proportion of desirable to undesirable behavior was the same between the majority and the minority. So in both cases, the same proportion between desirable and undesirable behavior was shown. Now, the question in this experiment was whether co-occurrence of distinctive stimuli would result in an overestimation of their correlation. So distinctive in this case means rare events. And in our example here, rare events are both undesirable behavior, because it's rarer than desirable behavior, and being a member of the minority group, because it's less likely that someone is a member of the minority group than the majority group. So here, the question is whether observers will think that undesirable behavior is more likely in the minority group than it was actually given this objective distribution of information. The idea behind this is that people are more attentive to distinctive rather than non-distinctive stimuli. So there is some heavier encoding going on, more attention is going on, and therefore participants create a belief that a relationship exists between these two undesirable, between these two categories, the undesirable and the minority category. So let's see if we can find evidence for that. What we have in this table here is the attribution of behaviors to the specific group. So participants were asked to indicate the group membership of the person who had performed each behavior. They were shown a behavior and were asked, did a member of Group A or a member of Group B do this? And now if we have evidence for a co-occurrence of distinctive events resulting in an illusory correlation, we would expect that negative behaviors should be over-attributed to the minority. Now let's first take a look at the desirable behaviors and how they are attributed to the Group A or Group B. And what we have is the mean attribution of these behaviors to A or B, and the actual distribution in gold. So remember that there were 18 desirable features for Group A and 9 for Group B. You can see that actually people are kind of pretty accurate in assessing or attributing desirable behaviors to Group A and Group B. But for the undesirable behaviors, remember that Group A was shown there were 8 undesirable features, and for Group B there were only 4. What we can see here, however, is actually a flip in the attribution of these behaviors. So people now estimate that in total a higher number of behaviors belong to Group B than belong to Group A, even though it should be the other way around. right? Because it should be the actual information that was provided. There were just more pieces of information about group A that were undesirable than about group B that were undesirable. So overall, the groups are perceived as differently undesirable, and the majority group is actually perceived as more desirable. So the minority group is perceived as more undesirable, I should say, than the majority group. We don't only have evidence on the attribution of behaviors to the groups, but we can also look at the probability of correctly recalling each behavior. And now we can compare this against chance. So if for any behavior described, I just take a guess, and the probability that I correctly recall if this behavior belonged to group A or to group B is plotted here in gold. So 60% for desirable group A, desirable group B, and undesirable behaviors just have 40% probability of being guessed. So, and now if we take a look at the probability of correctly recalling each behavior, we can see that for desirable behavior, it's more likely that a behavior will be correctly recalled if it's associated with group A than with group B, and undesirable behavior, we have again a flip. It's more likely that correctly behavior will be recalled for group B if it is undesirable than in group A. And in both cases, undesirable behavior is actually correctly recalled more higher than the chance level, while desirable behavior for the minority is actually recalled at a level that's slightly lower than chance, right? So again, we have evidence that overall the groups are perceived as differently desirable, and that the minority is judged as more undesirable. So we would say this is some evidence that an illusory correlation exists between undesirable behavior and membership to the minority.